Welcome to the multiverse of anime, where heroes fall and legends are reborn in ways that will shatter everything you thought you knew. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more mind-bending alternate realities that will leave you questioning the very fabric of reality itself. Picture this. The strongest human fighter in Universe 7 stands atop a mountain of rubble that was once planet Namek. But something is terrifyingly wrong with this scene. His signature bald head now crowned with flowing golden hair that defies gravity itself. His gentle brown eyes blazing with the unmistakable teal fire of a Super Saiyan transformation. Muscles ripple beneath his orange gi as power radiates from his compact frame in waves that bend space itself. This is not the Krillin you know. Destructo discs multiply around him like a deadly constellation. Not just 3 or 4, but dozens upon dozens of spinning energy blades, each one capable of slicing through mountains as if they were made of paper. They orbit his body in perfect formation, controlled with the precision of a master tactician and the raw power of a legendary warrior race. The very air screams as they cut through dimensional barriers. But the most shocking sight is not Frieza's defeat, it is the expression on Krillin's face. Gone is the gentle smile of Earth's protector. In its place burns the cold determination of a warrior race that conquered galaxies. His hands, once hesitant to take life, now drip with the blood of enemies who underestimated the fury of Saiyan heritage awakened. Frieza lies broken at his feet, the emperor of the universe, the destroyer of planets, the tyrant who brought entire galaxies to their knees, reduced to a whimpering mess of cybernetic parts and shattered pride. His golden form flickers and fails as he stares up at the impossible sight before him. A low-class Saiyan he never knew existed, a warrior who had been hiding among the humans all along. The landscape around them tells a story of devastation beyond imagination. Continents have been reshaped by the force of their battle. Mountain ranges have been reduced to glass from the heat of their energy attacks. The very core of Namek pulses with instability as reality itself struggles to contain the power that has been unleashed. But it is Android 18's reaction that cuts deepest. The woman who would have loved Krillin for his kind heart and protective spirit now stares at a stranger wearing her beloved's face. Her blue eyes reflect the golden aura surrounding him, and in that light she sees something that chills her mechanical heart. The gentle man she fell for harbors the blood of the universe's most feared warrior race. In the distance, the Z-fighters watch in stunned silence. Goku's face shows not joy at their victory, but deep concern for what his best friend has become. Vegeta's expression is one of twisted pride mixed with jealousy. Another Saiyan elite has emerged, but from the most unexpected source imaginable. Gohan trembles as he realizes his gentle mentor possesses the same terrifying heritage as his father. The energy reaches critical mass and Krillin's voice echoes across the dying planet, deeper than it has ever been, filled with an authority that comes from bloodline and birthright. You wanted to see the power of the Saiyan race, Frieza? Let me show you what happens when that power is guided by a warrior's discipline instead of a prince's pride. This is the moment everything changes. This is the moment the strongest human reveals he was never human at all. Krillin raises his hand and energy begins to coalesce around his palm. Not the familiar blue glow of a Kamehameha wave, but something new, something terrifying. Golden energy swirled with crimson rage, a technique born from the fusion of human discipline and Saiyan fury. The attack builds slowly, deliberately, as he savors the fear in Frieza's eyes. The blast erupts from his hands like a star being born. It tears through the air with such force that reality itself begins to crack. Frieza's scream of terror is lost in the roar of energy that could reshape solar systems. The attack strikes true, and for a moment the entire universe holds its breath. But this is only the beginning of our story, because hidden in the depths of space, sensors across the galaxy detect something impossible. Saiyan power levels are spiking on Earth. Multiple signatures. The race that was supposed to be extinct has not only survived but thrived in ways that should have been impossible. Ancient enemies stir in their slumber. New threats emerge from the shadows. And on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, a bald monk is about to discover that his greatest strength was never his techniques or his training. It was the warrior blood that flowed through his veins all along. What if the gentlest fighter in Universe 7 possessed the heritage of its most brutal conquerors? What if compassion and savagery could exist in the same heart? What if Krillin had Saiyan blood flowing through his veins? The answers will change everything you thought you knew about power, sacrifice, and what it truly means to be strong. To understand how we arrived at this impossible moment, we must travel back to where it all began. To the Turtle Hermit's Island, where a young boy with 6 dots on his forehead first stepped onto the path of martial arts. But this time, the path would lead somewhere no one could have imagined. Please, Master Roshi. The young monk bowed deeply, his voice carrying a determination that seemed far too mature for his age. I want to become strong enough to protect people. I've heard you trained the legendary martial artist who won the world tournament. 13-year-old Krillin arrived at Master Roshi's doorstep as the smallest, weakest student the legendary martial artist had ever considered training. His head freshly shaved in the tradition of the Orin Temple, his body lean from years of monastery discipline, but his power level barely registering above that of an ordinary human child. Yet there was something different about this boy that even Master Roshi couldn't quite place. The turtle hermit studied the boy carefully. There was indeed something unusual about his energy signature, a depth that suggested hidden potential. But more importantly, there was a purity of spirit that reminded him of another young fighter who had once sought his training. Very well, boy. But my training is not for the weak-hearted. You'll be training alongside another student, a Saiyan child named Goku. Think you can keep up with alien genetics? Krillin's eyes blazed with determination. I'll work twice as hard as anyone with natural talent, master. I promise you that. And work hard he did. From dawn until dusk, Krillin pushed his human body to its absolute limits. While Goku relied on his Saiyan instincts and natural ability, Krillin developed something equally valuable: perfect technique, tactical thinking, and an unbreakable will. His Destructo Disc was born from countless hours of energy manipulation practice. His solar flare emerged from studying the way light bent around ki energy. The 21st World Martial Arts Tournament showcased Krillin's incredible progress. His fight against Bacterian demonstrated his tactical mind as he used the solar flare to blind his opponent before delivering a decisive kick. Against Jackie Chun, who was secretly Master Roshi in disguise, Krillin displayed fighting skills that impressed even seasoned martial artists in the audience. But there were moments, brief flashes, when something else seemed to surface. During particularly intense training sessions when his life was genuinely threatened, Krillin's power would spike beyond what should have been possible for a human. His energy would take on a different quality, more aggressive, more primal. These moments passed so quickly that even Krillin himself dismissed them as adrenaline. Krillin would simply laugh it off. Just the result of hard work, Goku. Nothing more than that. You're getting stronger every day, Krillin, Goku would say after their training, his innocent smile masking a growing curiosity about his friend's unusual energy patterns. But it was during his sparring sessions with Goku that the most curious incidents occurred. Time and again, when Goku's Saiyan power began to overwhelm him, Krillin would find reserves of strength that defied explanation. His energy would surge, his strikes would carry unusual force, and for brief moments, his fighting style would shift from calculated technique to pure instinct. Years passed, and Krillin's reputation grew. He became known as Earth's strongest human, a title he wore with pride and humility. His relationship with his fellow Z-fighters deepened, built on mutual respect and countless shared battles. When threats like the Saiyans and Frieza emerged, Krillin stood shoulder to shoulder with warriors whose power dwarfed his own, contributing through strategy, technique, and unwavering courage. On Namek, fighting alongside Gohan against the Ginyu Force, Krillin's power level readings had confused even Vegeta's scouter. The numbers would spike and fall seemingly at random, as if his body was accessing energy it couldn't properly control. But there were always those unexplained moments. During the battle with Vegeta, when the Saiyan Prince's great ape form threatened to crush Goku, Krillin's Destructo Disc had carried enough power to slice through the transformed Saiyan's tail. The precision was his, but the raw energy behind the attack seemed to come from somewhere deeper. These incidents became more frequent as the stakes grew higher. Each time his friends were threatened, each time innocent lives hung in the balance, something primal would stir within Krillin's spirit, a hunger for battle that he quickly suppressed, an aggressive instinct that felt foreign to his peaceful nature. Dreams began to plague his sleep. Visions of a red sky burning above an alien world. The sound of screaming as a civilization died. Most disturbing of all, the feeling that these were not dreams, but memories that belonged to someone else, someone whose blood might flow in his veins. These strange episodes reached their peak during the final confrontation with Frieza on the dying planet Namek, as the Emperor of the Universe prepared to destroy everything Krillin held dear. As his friends lay broken and bleeding, something deep within the monk's genetic code began to awaken. And in that moment of ultimate desperation, as Frieza's horn pierced through his chest and death approached, Krillin's true heritage would finally reveal itself in the most explosive way imaginable. Death had never felt so cold. Frieza's horn protruded from Krillin's chest, piercing through muscle and bone with casual cruelty. The Emperor of the Universe smiled with sadistic pleasure as he lifted the small human into the air, letting gravity and physics do their work. Blood dripped onto the orange stones of Namek, each drop echoing like thunder in the sudden silence. Such a pathetic end for Earth's supposed strongest human, Frieza sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. Did you really think your little tricks could challenge the might of the universe's Emperor? Krillin's vision blurred as his life force ebbed away. His friends' voices seemed to come from a great distance. Goku's anguished scream, Gohan's desperate cry, Piccolo's grim determination to continue the fight even as their strongest human ally fell. But as darkness closed in around the edges of his consciousness, something extraordinary happened. Instead of the peaceful acceptance he expected, instead of the gentle fade into nothingness that should accompany death, Krillin's mind exploded with visions that were not his own. A planet burned in the void of space, not Earth but somewhere far more alien. Red skies stretched over barren wastelands where cities once stood. The air itself seemed to scream as massive energy beams tore through the atmosphere. This was planet Vegeta in its final moments, and somehow, impossibly, Krillin was seeing it through someone else's eyes. A Saiyan warrior, scarred and bloodied, clutched a small infant to his chest as explosions rocked the ground beneath his feet. This was no elite fighter, no Super Saiyan legend. This was a low-class warrior, someone history would never remember, but whose final act would echo across the galaxy. "My son," the warrior whispered, his voice hoarse with desperation and smoke. "You will survive what I could not. You will find strength where I found only weakness." The warrior's hands moved with practiced efficiency despite his grievous wounds. A small space pod, barely large enough for the infant, hummed to life in a hidden chamber. The baby's tail twitched as his father placed him inside, sealing the pod with the last of his failing energy. "Go to Earth," the warrior commanded the pod's primitive navigation system. "Survive, grow strong, but remember, power without purpose is destruction. Learn from the humans what we Saiyans never could. Learn mercy." The pod launched just as Frieza's death beam pierced the planet's core. The warrior smiled as he watched his son's escape pod disappear into the void, his mission complete. As planet Vegeta died around him, his final thought was of hope that his bloodline would find a better path than the one his race had chosen. The infant in the pod was named Krillin, though he would never know his Saiyan birth name. The crash landing on Earth damaged the pod's memory banks, erasing all trace of his alien origin. A kind monastery found the child and raised him as human, never suspecting that beneath his gentle exterior flowed the blood of the universe's most feared warrior race. Now, 20 years later, as death claimed him on another dying planet, that suppressed heritage finally awakened. "Impossible," Frieza breathed, his confident smile faltering for the first time. Krillin's eyes snapped open, blazing with newfound understanding. The horn through his chest no longer seemed like a mortal wound, but merely an obstacle to overcome. Energy surged through his body, alien and familiar at the same time. His power level, which had been steadily dropping towards zero, suddenly spiked beyond anything his friends had ever sensed from him. Krillin's muscles expanded as Saiyan genetics activated throughout his body. His height increased by several inches as his skeletal structure altered to accommodate his true heritage. Most dramatically, his signature bald head sprouted thick black hair that grew at an impossible rate, falling around his shoulders in the distinctive style of his warrior race. Power exploded outward from Krillin's transformed body. The horn piercing his chest vaporized from the sheer intensity of his energy. His wounds sealed themselves as Saiyan healing factor kicked into overdrive. The orange gaze stretched and adapted to his new muscular frame, somehow remaining intact despite the massive physical changes. "You want to see what a Saiyan can do, Frieza?" Krillin's voice had deepened, carrying an authority that came from bloodline and birthright. "Let me show you the difference between a warrior who conquers and one who protects." "I'm not human," Krillin replied, his feet touching the ground as his energy lifted him free from Frieza's grasp. "I never was. I'm the son of a Saiyan warrior who chose mercy over conquest, and today you're going to learn why that choice made me stronger than any elite you've ever faced." Frieza stumbled backward, his scouters screaming warnings about impossible power readings. "Your power level, it's over 500,000. How is this possible from a human?" The transformation was not without cost. Along with the surge of physical power came a flood of alien instincts. The urge to dominate, to crush his enemies without mercy, to establish dominance through superior force. Every cell in his body screamed for him to unleash the full fury of his Saiyan heritage upon the tyrant before him. But deeper than those instincts, stronger than the call for violence, was the training and philosophy that had shaped his human upbringing. 20 years of meditation, of learning restraint, of choosing protection over destruction. The monastery's teachings warred with Saiyan bloodlust in a battle that raged within his very soul. Krillin's internal struggle manifested physically as his aura flickered between the golden energy of Saiyan power and the pure white light of spiritual discipline. His newly grown hair shifted from black to gold and back again as two natures fought for dominance within the same body. "I can feel it," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder and horror. "The hunger for battle, the joy of combat, the desire to prove superiority through strength. This is what drives your race, isn't it, Frieza? This is what you fear in the Saiyans." Frieza's expression had shifted from amusement to genuine concern. "Another monkey awakens to his heritage. No matter, I destroyed your entire race once. One survivor changes nothing." He raised his hands, and energy began to gather between his palms, not the familiar blue of his human techniques, but a swirling mixture of gold and crimson that seemed to bend space around itself. The attack combined everything he was: Saiyan power guided by human wisdom, warrior instincts tempered by monk discipline. "You're wrong," Krillin said, his aura stabilizing into something unprecedented. "Neither pure Saiyan gold nor human white, but a unique blend that pulsed with controlled power. I'm not just another Saiyan, I'm something new, something your genocide couldn't account for." The energy reached critical mass, reality warping around the concentrated power. Frieza's eyes widened as he realized this was no ordinary ki blast. This was something that could actually hurt him, something that combined the best aspects of two completely different approaches to combat. "This is for every planet you've destroyed," Krillin declared, his voice carrying across the dying world. "For every life you've taken, for every civilization that fell before your tyranny." Krillin's friends watched in stunned amazement as their gentle companion prepared to unleash power that could reshape the battlefield. But as the attack built toward its inevitable release, blood began to trickle from his nose. His body, unprepared for such a massive transformation, was beginning to rebel against the sudden surge of alien genetics. The critical question hung in the air like the energy gathering in his hands. Could his human physiology handle the full awakening of his Saiyan heritage, or would the power that saved his life also destroy him from within? As Frieza prepared his own counterattack, and Namek continued its death spiral toward destruction, one truth became absolutely clear. The gentle monk known as Earth's strongest human was gone forever. In his place stood something unprecedented in the history of the universe, a Saiyan warrior guided by compassion rather than conquest. The collision of their attacks would determine not just the fate of Namek, but the future path of a bloodline that was supposed to have died with planet Vegeta. When the blinding light faded, both warriors stood on opposite sides of the newly formed crater. Krillin's body trembled violently as his untrained physiology struggled to contain the alien genetics now flowing through his veins. His newly grown hair flickered between black and gold, while his power level fluctuated wildly between human limitations and Saiyan potential. The collision of energies tore through Namek's atmosphere like a newborn star. Krillin's unprecedented attack, fueled by the fusion of Saiyan power and human discipline, met Frieza's desperate counterblast in the space between them. The resulting explosion carved a canyon 20 miles deep into the planet's surface and sent shockwaves rippling through the cosmic void. Frieza emerged from the smoke with his golden form cracked and bleeding. For the first time in his reign of terror, genuine fear flickered in his crimson eyes. "What are you?" he gasped, his voice no longer carrying its usual confident sneer. Before Krillin could respond, his knees buckled. The massive power surge that had saved his life was now threatening to tear him apart from within. Blood poured from his nose as his internal organs struggled to adapt to Saiyan physiology. His human body simply wasn't designed to channel such overwhelming energy. "I'm fine," Krillin managed through gritted teeth, though his voice betrayed the agony he was experiencing. "Just give me a moment to adjust." Goku caught his friend before he could hit the ground, his own eyes wide with amazement and concern. "Krillin, what's happening to you? Your power level, it's incredible, but your body—" But there would be no moment of peace. Frieza's mechanical laughter echoed across the battlefield as he began his own transformation. The Emperor's body swelled with cybernetic enhancements that had been hidden beneath his organic exterior. Cables and wires erupted from his flesh as his power level climbed steadily upward. Mechanical tendrils shot forward with lightning speed, each one capable of piercing through steel. Krillin forced himself to his feet, his body moving on pure instinct as Saiyan combat reflexes took control. He weaved between the attacks with fluid grace, his movements no longer the calculated techniques of human martial arts, but the natural flow of a warrior born to fight. "Did you think one surprise would be enough to defeat me?" Frieza snarled, his form now a horrific fusion of organic tissue and mechanical precision. "I have prepared for every possible threat, including the return of the Saiyan race. These enhancements were specifically designed to counter your genetic advantages." His Destructo Disc technique evolved in real time as Saiyan energy mixed with human precision. Instead of creating a single energy blade, dozens of spinning discs materialized around his body. Each one moved independently, guided by battle instincts he never knew he possessed. They formed a deadly constellation of cutting energy that sliced through Frieza's mechanical attachments like paper. "Impossible," Frieza hissed as sparks flew from severed cables. "My analysis showed that Saiyan combat patterns are predictable, driven by pride and aggression. But you fight like someone who learned discipline before power," Krillin finished, his voice steady despite the internal chaos raging through his body. "That's the difference between us, Frieza. You see strength as a tool for domination. I see it as a responsibility to protect." The battle erupted into a deadly dance across Namek's crumbling surface. Frieza's mechanical form granted him enhanced speed and processing power, but Krillin's hybrid nature proved unexpectedly advantageous. His human training allowed him to think tactically, while his awakened Saiyan instincts provided the raw power to execute his strategies. They crashed through mountain ranges and carved new rivers with their energy attacks. Krillin's Kamehameha wave, now supercharged with Saiyan energy, met Frieza's death beams in spectacular collisions that lit up the dying planet's sky. Each exchange of attacks brought them closer to their physical limits. But it was Krillin who began to falter first. His unprecedented power came at a cost. His body was struggling to pay. With each technique he used, each burst of Saiyan energy he channeled, his human physiology degraded further. His movements became less precise, his energy output more erratic. A devastating energy blast caught Krillin in the chest, sending him crashing into a cliff face. As he struggled to rise, coughing blood, the truth of Frieza's words became undeniable. His transformation was killing him as surely as the tyrant's attacks. "Krillin!" Gohan's voice carried across the battlefield as the young half-Saiyan rushed to his mentor's aid. "Let me help you!" Frieza noticed the weakness immediately. "Your mongrel genetics are betraying you," he taunted, pressing his attack with renewed confidence. "Human flesh was never meant to contain Saiyan power. You're burning yourself out from within." Stay back, Krillin commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had looked death in the face and chosen to fight anyway. This is my battle to finish. He forced himself upright, drawing on reserves of determination that came from both sides of his heritage. His Saiyan blood demanded victory at any cost, while his human heart insisted on protecting those he loved. The combination created a resolve that transcended either nature alone. Frieza launched another barrage of mechanical attacks, but this time Krillin didn't dodge. Instead, he walked forward through the assault, his energy forming a protective barrier that absorbed the impacts. Each step brought him closer to his enemy, even as his body paid the price for such reckless use of power. You want to see what happens when Saiyan power serves human ideals? Krillin asked, his aura blazing with renewed intensity. Let me show you something no pure Saiyan could ever achieve. Energy gathered around his hands, but this time it was different. Instead of the golden glow of Saiyan power or the white light of human ki, a new color emerged. Silver energy that seemed to contain both warmth and cold, aggression and peace, destruction and creation. It was the physical manifestation of his dual nature, a technique that could only exist in someone who embodied both warrior and protector. Harmony Cannon, he whispered, the name coming to him as if he had always known it. The attack erupted from his palms with devastating force. It struck Frieza's mechanical form and began to tear apart the cybernetic enhancements, not through brute strength, but by disrupting the harmony between organic and artificial components. The Emperor's scream of pain and rage echoed across the planet as his technological advantages crumbled. But even as victory seemed within reach, Krillin collapsed to one knee. The effort of creating such an unprecedented technique had pushed his hybrid physiology beyond its breaking point. His hair began to revert to its normal black color as his Saiyan transformation destabilized. Frieza, wounded but not defeated, saw his opportunity. Despite his damaged mechanical systems, he gathered energy for one final attack. If I cannot rule this universe, he snarled, then I will watch it burn, starting with you and this pathetic planet. The death beam that erupted from his fingertip was not aimed at Krillin, but at the planet's core. One direct hit would destabilize Namek's already critical condition and cause an explosion that would consume everything within several star systems. Krillin's eyes widened as he realized the implications. His friends, the Namekian survivors, even Frieza himself would perish in such a blast. Without thinking, without considering the cost to his already failing body, he threw himself into the path of the attack. The beam struck him squarely in the chest, the same spot where Frieza's horn had pierced him earlier. But instead of allowing the energy to pass through him to the planet below, Krillin's body absorbed the attack entirely. His hybrid nature allowed him to contain energy that would have overwhelmed either a pure human or pure Saiyan. Frieza stared in disbelief as his ultimate attack simply disappeared. What have you done? What a protector does, Krillin replied, his voice growing weaker as his strength finally began to fail. I chose to save lives instead of taking them. As the absorbed power coursed through his system, adding to the already critical strain on his physiology, Krillin made a decision that would define his character for the rest of this altered timeline. Instead of using the energy to heal himself or power another attack, he began to disperse it harmlessly into space. The exertion proved too much. Krillin's transformation completely collapsed, his hair returning to normal as his power level plummeted back toward human ranges. He fell forward, unconscious, his body finally succumbing to the massive strain of channeling power it was never designed to contain. As his friends rushed to his aid and Frieza retreated to lick his wounds, one truth had become crystal clear. The gentle monk from Earth had awakened to his Saiyan heritage, but he had also proven that bloodline alone does not determine destiny. His choice to protect rather than conquer had created something unprecedented in the universe, a Saiyan warrior guided by human compassion. But this was only the beginning of how his revealed heritage would reshape the fate of everyone he held dear. Krillin blocked a devastating right hook and countered with a precision strike to Vegeta's solar plexus. And Saiyan arrogance is why your planet got destroyed while the low-class survivors adapted and grew stronger. 3 months had passed since the battle on Namek, and Earth had become a very different place. In the mountains outside West City, 2 unlikely training partners pushed each other to their absolute limits. Krillin's body had adapted to his Saiyan heritage during his recovery, growing several inches taller and gaining muscle mass that would have taken years to develop through human training alone. Vegeta circled his sparring partner with predatory grace, his expression a mixture of fascination and frustration. Your form is sloppy, low class, he sneered, though his tone lacked its usual venom. Saiyan combat is about overwhelming force, not this defensive nonsense you learned from your human masters. The Prince of all Saiyans actually smiled at the retort. Over the past months, he had developed a grudging respect for this hybrid warrior who combined Saiyan power with human wisdom. Their training sessions had become legendary among the Z fighters, with power levels that rivaled anything seen during the Frieza saga. Again, Vegeta commanded, launching into a combination that would have shattered mountains. Your Saiyan instincts are awakening, but you still fight like you're trying to minimize damage. A true warrior seeks to dominate completely. Krillin's response was a barrage of energy attacks that forced even Vegeta to take evasive action. His Destructo Disc technique had evolved beyond recognition, splitting into smaller cutting rings that could change direction mid-flight. Each disc pulsed with silver energy that seemed to cut through both matter and ki barriers with equal ease. Maybe that's why pure Saiyans died out, Krillin replied, his voice carrying new authority. Power without purpose becomes self-destruction. I'd rather protect one life than conquer 1,000 worlds. Fascinating, Dr. Gero's voice emerged from Android 20's vocal processors. Our readings indicate not one but two Saiyan power sources training together. The data suggests genetic anomalies we did not account for in our original calculations. Their philosophical debate was interrupted by the arrival of unexpected visitors. Android 19 and 20 materialized from the forest, their mechanical forms moving with inhuman precision. But something was different about their approach. Instead of the confident assault they had planned, both androids seemed cautious, almost wary. Android 19's sensors locked onto Krillin specifically. This one registers as both human and Saiyan. Genetic composition does not match any known profiles. Threat assessment requires recalibration. Krillin and Vegeta exchanged glances before attacking in perfect synchronization. Their months of training together had created an unlikely partnership that combined Vegeta's ruthless efficiency with Krillin's tactical brilliance. They moved like dancers in a deadly ballet, each covering the other's weaknesses while amplifying their strengths. The battle that followed demonstrated just how much the power dynamics of Earth had shifted. Krillin's hybrid nature granted him unique advantages against the energy-absorbing androids. His human training allowed him to regulate his ki output precisely, feeding Android 19 just enough energy to overload its absorption systems. Impossible! Dr. Gero gasped as sparks flew from his companion's damaged chassis. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our database. How is he generating power that our systems cannot properly absorb? Vegeta provided the answer with a vicious smile as he delivered a devastating blow to Android 20's cranial unit. Because he's something you never planned for, old fool, a Saiyan who learned restraint before he learned destruction. Krillin's new technique manifested as dozens of silver energy orbs that surrounded the androids like a miniature solar system. Each orb pulsed with contained power, waiting for his mental command to either attack or defend. Unlike traditional ki attacks, these guardian spheres could adapt their function in real time, switching from offensive weapons to protective barriers as the battle demanded. A Saiyan cutter array, Krillin announced as the spheres transformed into spinning discs that moved with predatory intelligence. Each one sought out weak points in the android's armor while avoiding their energy absorption ports entirely. But the most shocking development came when both androids attempted to retreat. Their tactical programs had determined that victory was no longer probable against opponents whose capabilities exceeded their original parameters. For the first time in their artificial existence, they experienced something resembling fear. The androids found themselves overwhelmed by an assault that seemed to anticipate their every countermeasure. Android 19's absorption field proved useless against attacks that changed their energy frequency faster than its systems could adapt. Android 20's surprise attacks were countered by guardian spheres that repositioned themselves to block incoming threats. Retreat is not in your programming, Vegeta called after them with dark amusement. Stand and fight like the weapons you were designed to be. Negative, Android 20 replied, his voice betraying electronic strain. Mission parameters require recalibration. Current threat assessment indicates probability of termination exceeds acceptable parameters. As the androids disappeared into the forest, Krillin and Vegeta stood among the destruction their battle had caused. Entire sections of mountainside had been carved away by their energy attacks, while the ground beneath their feet bore the scars of forces that could reshape landscapes. The training intensified over the following weeks as word of the android encounter spread among Earth's defenders. Krillin found himself in the unprecedented position of being consulted as a tactical expert rather than just another fighter. His unique perspective, combining Saiyan battle instincts with human strategic thinking, proved invaluable in preparing for future threats. Vegeta nodded grimly. Then we continue training. Your hybrid nature has given us an advantage they didn't expect, but that advantage only lasts until they adapt. They'll be back, Krillin observed, his enhanced senses tracking the androids' energy signatures as they fled. And they'll bring upgrades specifically designed to counter what they learned here today. His relationship with Android 18 had also evolved in unexpected ways. The blonde android found herself drawn to his gentleness despite his newfound power, but also intrigued by the warrior strength that now flowed through his veins. Their conversations had taken on new depth as she helped him navigate the psychological challenges of his dual nature. You're different now, she observed during one of their walks through the city. Stronger, obviously, but also more confident. Sometimes I see flashes of something almost predatory in your eyes. Krillin paused, considering her words carefully. The Saiyan instincts are always there now. The hunger for battle, the drive to prove superiority through combat. I have to consciously choose restraint every day. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from Capsule Corp. Dr. Brief's voice crackled through the communicator with barely controlled excitement. Krillin, you need to see this immediately. We've been analyzing the energy readings from your battle with the androids, and the implications are staggering. At Capsule Corp, the gathered Z-fighters stared at readouts that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Brief pointed to complex energy wave patterns displayed on multiple monitors. Your hybrid physiology isn't just combining human and Saiyan traits, it's creating entirely new forms of key manipulation that we've never seen before. And that choice is what makes you special, 18 replied, her hand finding his. Any fool can destroy. It takes real strength to protect. More importantly, Dr. Brief continued, these readings suggest other possibilities. If Krillin can manifest such unique abilities through his mixed heritage, what about other fighters? Are there others on Earth with hidden alien genetics? Bulma leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her usual skepticism. The energy signatures show properties of both organic ki and mechanical energy absorption resistance. It's like your body naturally evolved countermeasures to artificial threats. The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything they thought they knew about their planet's defenders. Yamcha shifted uncomfortably, while Tien's expression grew thoughtful. Even Master Roshi seemed lost in contemplation. Piccolo's sharp intellect cut through the speculation, which means the android threat is just the beginning. If there are others like Krillin, others with hidden heritage, then whatever's coming next will be designed to counter not just Saiyans, but any form of alien genetics on Earth. There's something else, Vegeta added grimly. The androids mentioned genetic anomalies and threat recalibration. If Dr. Gero has been monitoring alien genetic markers on Earth, then he knows more about our capabilities than we realized. As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began blaring throughout Capsule Corp. Satellite feeds showed a massive energy signature approaching from space, one that dwarfed anything they had previously encountered. The readings suggested something impossibly powerful, something that made even Perfect Cell's energy seem manageable by comparison. It's too early, Krillin breathed, his enhanced senses detecting malevolent intent in the approaching presence. Whatever that is, it's not supposed to arrive for years. Vegeta's expression hardened with grim determination. Your transformation has accelerated the timeline. Every major power shift draws attention from across the galaxy. Something out there has decided Earth represents either an opportunity or a threat that can't be ignored. The energy signature suddenly split into multiple smaller sources, each one still powerful enough to threaten entire star systems. Whatever was coming wasn't just one entity, but an entire force that had been drawn by the unprecedented combination of powers now present on Earth. They're not just coming for the Saiyans, Krillin realized with growing horror. They're coming for the hybrids, for the genetic anomalies that shouldn't exist. As the approaching fleet drew closer, one truth became undeniably clear. Krillin's awakening had done more than save Namek and defeat Frieza. It had announced to the universe that Earth harbored something unprecedented, something that combined the best traits of multiple species into forms of power that defied conventional understanding. The ripple effects of his transformation were about to bring consequences that would test not just his hybrid abilities, but the very survival of everything he had sworn to protect. Fascinating, Cell mused as he surveyed the empty streets, his voice carrying an intelligence that exceeded his original timeline counterpart. The genetic samples I absorbed included traces of something unexpected, Saiyan DNA mixed with human physiology in ways that should be impossible. The arrival of Cell had been anticipated, but not in this form. The bio-android materialized in the ruins of Gingertown not as the imperfect creature they expected, but as something far more sophisticated. His green carapace gleamed with an unnatural sheen that suggested enhanced durability, while his energy signature pulsed with patterns that seemed familiar yet alien. Dr. Gero's hidden laboratories had been monitoring Earth's defenders far longer than anyone realized. Every battle, every energy spike, every transformation had been recorded and analyzed. Cell's creation had been refined to account for the unexpected variable that Krillin represented, making him not just a perfect warrior, but a perfect hybrid hunter. The first confrontation came when Piccolo arrived to investigate the town's disappearance. The Namekian warrior had expected to face an enemy he understood, but Cell's enhanced form moved with techniques that seemed eerily familiar. Cell's smile was predatory and knowing. Every fighter I absorb adds to my genetic database, but your friend's hybrid nature provided something even more valuable than power. His techniques adapt and evolve in ways that pure Saiyan or human methods cannot match. Those moves, Piccolo breathed as Cell deflected his special beam cannon with a silver energy barrier. That's Krillin's Guardian Sphere technique, but how could you possibly know it? The battle escalated quickly as Cell demonstrated abilities that shouldn't exist. His Kamehameha wave carried the precision of human training mixed with Saiyan fury. His energy manipulation showed the tactical flexibility that Krillin had developed through his dual nature. Most disturbing of all, Cell seemed to understand the psychological balance required to maintain such contradictory powers. Meanwhile, the relationships among Earth's defenders underwent their own dramatic transformations. Vegeta found himself in the unprecedented position of defending Krillin's training methods against criticism from other Z-fighters who worried about the hybrid's increasing aggression. His power is growing too quickly, Yamcha argued during a tense strategy meeting at Capsule Corp. Every day he seems more like a Saiyan and less like the Krillin we knew. Perhaps that's exactly what we need, Vegeta countered with surprising vehemence. Your human sentimentality won't save Earth from what's coming. Krillin understands that power requires sacrifice. That hunger is what keeps you alive. Krillin's voice cut through the debate as he entered the room. His presence had changed dramatically over recent months. Where once he had moved with careful humility, he now carried himself with the unconscious authority of someone born to command. The argument erupted into something more serious when Tian openly questioned whether Krillin could still be trusted with his newfound abilities. The gentle monk we trained with is disappearing. I've seen how he looks during battle now. There's something hungry in his eyes. You've grown strong, my student, Roshi said quietly. But strength without wisdom becomes tyranny. The techniques I taught you were meant to protect life, not to prove dominance. The confrontation that followed revealed the deep fractures that his transformation had created within their group. Master Roshi, his former teacher, faced him across the training grounds of Kame House with sadness evident in his ancient eyes. And they still do, Krillin replied, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with power itself. But protection sometimes requires the willingness to destroy utterly. That's the lesson my Saiyan heritage teaches. Their duel was less about victory than about philosophy. Roshi's techniques, refined through centuries of practice, met Krillin's evolved abilities in an exchange that demonstrated just how far the student had surpassed his master. But it was the emotional core of their conflict that truly mattered. Each technique Krillin used showed the influence of his dual nature. His Kamehameha wave had gained the overwhelming force of Saiyan power while retaining the precise control of human training. His movement combined the fluid grace of martial arts with the predatory efficiency of a born warrior. You fight like you're trying to prove something, Roshi observed as he dodged a series of guardian spheres that moved with lethal intent. But to whom? Me, yourself, or the Saiyan blood that demands acknowledgement? Their reconciliation came not through victory, but through understanding. Roshi acknowledged that his student had outgrown the need for a teacher, while Krillin accepted that power without wisdom would indeed lead to tyranny. But their relationship had been fundamentally altered, shifted from master and student to equals who chose different paths. I fight because I must, he finally answered, his aura stabilizing into something that balanced aggression with restraint. The threats we face require every advantage we can gain. If that means embracing what I am instead of what I was, then that's the choice I make. The question struck deeper than any physical attack. Krillin's assault faltered as he confronted the truth behind his master's words. Was he fighting to protect others, or to satisfy the warrior instincts that grew stronger with each passing day? Your energy signature is impossible, 17 observed during their first encounter. Our sensors register you as both target and non-target simultaneously. Dr. Gero's programming doesn't know how to classify you. The emergence of unexpected alliances proved even more transformative. Android 17 and 18's activation had proceeded differently in this timeline, influenced by Cell's enhanced capabilities and the changed power dynamics among Earth's defenders. Rather than immediately attacking the Z fighters, they found themselves caught between their original programming and curiosity about the hybrid who defied their threat assessment protocols. 18's reaction was more complex, colored by emotions that her artificial nature wasn't supposed to possess. She found herself drawn to Krillin's gentle moments while intrigued by the dangerous power that lurked beneath his surface. Their relationship developed along entirely new lines as she helped him navigate the psychological challenges of his transformation. Their partnership extended beyond personal relationship into combat coordination. 18's mechanical precision complemented Krillin's hybrid adaptability in ways that created new tactical possibilities. Their combined techniques merged artificial intelligence with genetic instinct to produce strategies that neither could have developed alone. You're afraid of what you're becoming, she observed during one of their training sessions, but you're also excited by it. The Saiyan part of you enjoys the strength, doesn't it? Krillin's honesty in answering surprised even himself. Yes, there's a joy in combat that I never understood before. The thrill of testing myself against worthy opponents, the satisfaction of overwhelming an enemy through superior force. Sometimes I have to actively choose mercy over the easier path of destruction. The most shocking alliance emerged when circumstances forced former enemies to cooperate. Cell's enhanced form threatened not just Earth, but the entire structure of power that had maintained galactic stability. When Frieza arrived on Earth seeking revenge, he found himself facing an enemy that could potentially surpass even his own evolved capabilities. Another abomination. Frieza sneered as he surveyed Cell's perfect form. First the mongrel hybrid, now this artificial perfection. The universe is becoming polluted with aberrations that defy natural order. But pragmatism overcame pride when Cell demonstrated abilities that threatened both Frieza and Earth's defenders equally. The bio-android's perfect copying meant that every technique used against him became part of his arsenal. His adaptation rate exceeded even Saiyan learning capabilities, making him a threat that grew stronger with each encounter. The temporary alliance between Krillin and Frieza was born of necessity rather than trust. Their coordination during battle revealed the stark differences in their approaches to combat, but also the unexpected effectiveness of combining tactical thinking with overwhelming force. You fight like you have something to lose, Frieza observed as they prepared for another assault on Cell's position. That weakness will be your undoing. And you fight like you have nothing to protect, Krillin replied. That's why you'll never understand true strength. Their philosophical differences actually enhanced their combat effectiveness. Frieza's ruthless efficiency covered for moments when Krillin's protective instincts left him vulnerable, while Krillin's strategic thinking compensated for Frieza's tendency to rely purely on overwhelming power. As they prepared for the final confrontation with Cell, alliances had been forged and broken in ways that would reshape the balance of power throughout the universe. Krillin stood at the center of these changes, his hybrid nature serving as a bridge between different philosophies of strength and different definitions of victory. The gentle monk who had once fought to minimize casualties now commanded respect from both heroes and villains. His transformation had proven that identity could be chosen rather than inherited, and that the combination of different natures could create something greater than the sum of its parts. But the ultimate test of these new alliances was approaching rapidly, as Cell prepared to reveal capabilities that would challenge everything they thought they understood about the limits of artificial evolution. The hyperbolic time chamber had never contained power like this before. For 3 days in the outside world, equivalent to 3 years within the mystical training dimension, Krillin and Vegeta pushed each other beyond every conceivable limit. The chamber's reinforced walls bore scars from techniques that shouldn't exist, while the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly under the strain of their energy output. "Your form is finally acceptable," Vegeta grudgingly admitted as he blocked a combination that would have leveled cities. "But you still hesitate at the crucial moment. Saiyan power demands complete commitment to victory." Krillin's response was a technique that made Vegeta's eyes widen in genuine surprise. Silver energy erupted from his body in perfectly controlled waves, each pulse carrying enough force to shatter diamond while maintaining the precision to thread a needle. This was perfect harmony, a state that balanced Saiyan aggression with human discipline so completely that the two natures enhanced rather than conflicted with each other. "Maybe that hesitation is what makes this power controllable," Krillin replied, his voice carrying new depths of confidence. "Your pure Saiyan instincts seek domination, mine seek protection. The combination creates something neither of us could achieve alone." Their sparring session was interrupted by a development that neither warrior had anticipated. The weighted training gi that Krillin wore, designed to accommodate Saiyan physiology, began to strain against his expanding frame. His body was still adapting to his awakened heritage, growing taller and more muscular with each passing day. "Fascinating," Vegeta observed as Krillin's power level continued to climb steadily upward. "Your hybrid nature allows for continuous adaptation rather than the plateau periods that limit pure Saiyans. You're evolving in real time." Golden energy surrounded his muscular frame, but it was unlike any Super Saiyan form previously seen. The aura pulsed with silver undertones that spoke of controlled power rather than barely restrained fury. His hair, now reaching past his shoulders, flowed with energy that seemed almost alive in its responsiveness to his emotional state. The most significant breakthrough came when Krillin attempted his first true Super Saiyan transformation. Unlike Goku's rage-fueled ascension or Vegeta's pride-driven evolution, Krillin's path required something entirely different. His transformation emerged not from anger or arrogance, but from the absolute commitment to protect those he loved. "Super Saiyan Monk," he whispered, feeling the transformation settle into his bones like a perfect fit. Power guided by purpose rather than driven by passion. Vegeta's reaction was complex, mixing professional admiration with personal frustration. "Your transformation lacks the raw aggression that defines true Saiyan power, yet I cannot deny its effectiveness. You've found a way to access our racial heritage without succumbing to its weaknesses." Outside the time chamber, preparations for Cell's inevitable challenge proceeded with desperate intensity. The bio-android had been systematically absorbing humans across the globe, each victim adding to his already perfect genetic matrix. But his targets weren't random. Analysis of the disappearances revealed a disturbing pattern focused on individuals with unusual energy signatures. "He's hunting for more hybrid genetics," Bulma announced during an emergency briefing at Capsule Corp. "Every person Cell has absorbed in the last week showed trace amounts of alien DNA in their blood work. He's specifically seeking out genetic diversity." Dr. Brief's analysis painted an even more troubling picture. Cell's absorption isn't just adding to his power level. He's integrating the unique adaptations that mixed heritage provides. Each hybrid he consumes makes him more versatile, more unpredictable. The implications were staggering. If Cell continued his selective hunting, he would eventually become something that combined not just Saiyan, Namekian, and human genetics, but every form of alien adaptation that had ever taken root on Earth. The planet would become a hunting ground for creating the ultimate life form. Piccolo's reconnaissance missions brought back increasingly dire reports. Cell's combat capabilities are evolving faster than we anticipated. His energy manipulation now shows characteristics from at least a dozen different fighting styles. He's becoming something that no single opponent can counter. "Interesting," Cell mused as he caught one of Krillin's evolved Destructo discs with his bare hand. "Your hybrid nature provides such fascinating genetic templates. Each sample I collect brings me closer to true perfection." The first major skirmish came when Cell attacked a military installation that housed classified research on alien genetics. The battle showcased his enhanced abilities as he effortlessly deflected attacks from multiple Z fighters simultaneously. His perfect copying had evolved into perfect adaptation, allowing him to counter techniques he had never seen before. "You cannot defeat perfection with mere sentiment," Cell declared as he unleashed a combination attack that merged Kamehameha waves with Destructo Disc precision. "Your hybrid advantages become my hybrid advantages. Your techniques become my techniques. What hope do you have against an enemy who grows stronger from every encounter?" Krillin found himself fighting not just for victory, but for the preservation of his very identity. Each exchange of attacks risked exposing him to Cell's absorption abilities, while his own techniques were being copied and improved in real time. The fight that followed demonstrated just how much the threat level had escalated. Cell's techniques now included variations of Krillin's Guardian Spheres, but twisted into offensive weapons that sought out genetic markers in their targets. His energy attacks carried viral properties that attempted to rewrite the DNA of anyone they touched. The answer came from an unexpected source. Android 18, whose mechanical nature granted immunity to Cell's genetic manipulation, intervened at the crucial moment. Her energy blasts disrupted Cell's absorption field just long enough for Krillin to escape the bio-android's grasp. "Perfect or not," she said with cold determination, "you're still vulnerable to superior firepower." Their combined assault forced Cell to retreat, but not before he had gathered enough genetic data to begin his next phase of evolution. As he disappeared into the wilderness, his parting words carried ominous implications. "Thank you for the sample," Cell called back with genuine gratitude. "The hybrid genetic markers you carry will serve me well in achieving my ultimate form." "We need a new approach," Krillin admitted as they regrouped at Capsule Corp. "Traditional combat won't work against an enemy who learns from every technique we use. We need something he can't copy." The aftermath of the encounter revealed just how much the stakes had escalated. Cell wasn't just becoming stronger, he was becoming more adaptive, more intelligent, more capable of countering any strategy they developed. His perfect form would not just match their abilities, but exceed them in every possible way. Vegeta's suggestion was characteristically direct. "Then we create techniques so destructive that using them would destroy him as well as us. Mutual annihilation is still victory if it saves the planet." But it was Goku who proposed the most radical solution. "What if we don't fight him at all? What if we find a way to make him not want to fight us?" The idea seemed impossible until they considered Cell's true nature. He wasn't driven by conquest or destruction, but by the pursuit of perfection. His ultimate goal was to test his abilities against the strongest possible opponents. Perhaps that desire could be redirected rather than simply opposed. A tournament, Piccolo realized with growing excitement. If Cell wants to prove his perfection, give him a stage worthy of that ambition. Channel his destructive impulses into a controlled environment. The Cell games were proposed as the ultimate test of strength, but with modifications that reflected the changed power dynamics of this timeline. Instead of a simple elimination tournament, it would be a series of challenges designed to test not just raw power, but adaptability, strategy, and the ability to protect others. "If Cell wants to prove he's perfect," Krillin declared, his Super Saiyan monk aura flaring with quiet determination, "then let's give him challenges that require more than just copying techniques. Let's see how perfect he really is when faced with opponents who fight for something greater than themselves." The Cell games would determine not just Earth's survival, but whether the fusion of different natures could create something truly greater than the sum of its parts. Cell claimed perfection through absorption and adaptation. Krillin represented perfection through choice and synthesis. As preparations began for the most important tournament in Earth's history, one truth had become undeniably clear. The Gentle Monk's transformation had escalated every conflict, accelerated every timeline, and attracted every threat. But it had also created possibilities that didn't exist in the original universe. The ultimate test was about to determine which philosophy would prove superior when the fate of everything hung in the balance. The revelation that shattered everything came not from Cell, but from an impossible arrival that defied every prediction. As the Z fighters gathered at the tournament grounds, preparing for what they believed would be the ultimate test against the bio-android, space itself seemed to tear open above them. Through the dimensional rift stepped a figure that made even Cell pause in genuine surprise. But as the countdown to the Cell games began, sensors throughout the galaxy detected something that would change every calculation. An energy signature was approaching from deep space, one that dwarfed even Cell's perfect power. Someone or something had been drawn by the unprecedented combination of forces now present on Earth. The gathering storm was about to become a hurricane that would test every alliance, every technique, and every belief about what it truly meant to be strong. Frieza had returned, but not as the mechanical cyborg they remembered. His form had evolved into something that transcended his previous limitations, gleaming with an opalescent sheen that suggested power beyond anything he had previously achieved. This was Frieza's true final form, achieved through years of training driven by one obsession: the complete elimination of every Saiyan hybrid in existence. How touching! Frieza's voice carried across the tournament arena with honeyed malice, the mongrel and the artificial perfection, preparing to dance for the entertainment of insects. But I'm afraid this performance will have to be cancelled. Cell's perfect features twisted into an expression of irritation. Your timing is inconvenient, Emperor. I was about to demonstrate my superiority over these hybrid aberrations in a more civilized manner. Civilized? Frieza laughed, the sound like crystal breaking in a hurricane. There is nothing civilized about allowing Saiyan blood to pollute the universe further. These genetic anomalies must be cleansed before they spread their contamination to other worlds. The standoff that followed was unlike anything the Earth had ever witnessed. Three titans of power faced each other in a triangle of mutual hostility, each representing a different philosophy of strength. Cell embodied perfection through adaptation, Frieza represented purity through elimination, and Krillin stood for growth through synthesis. "You're both missing the point," Krillin said, his Super Saiyan monk aura flaring with controlled intensity. "Power isn't about domination or perfection. It's about the choice to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Frieza's response was a beam of energy that would have atomized a planet, but Krillin didn't dodge. Instead, his guardian spheres materialized in perfect formation, each one absorbing a portion of the attack while redirecting the remainder harmlessly into space. The technique demonstrated something that neither Frieza nor Cell had anticipated, the ability to neutralize overwhelming force through perfect distribution rather than brute resistance. "Impossible," Frieza breathed, his confidence shaken for the first time. "That attack should have vaporized everything within 50 miles. Cell's analytical mind immediately began processing the implications. His hybrid nature allows for energy manipulation that exceeds the sum of its component parts. He's not just combining Saiyan and human techniques, he's creating entirely new applications of key theory. "This is what you fear," Krillin declared as his technique overwhelmed both opponents' defenses. Not Saiyan power or human wisdom alone, but the combination of different strengths creating something entirely new. The three-way battle that erupted redefined the very concept of combat. Cell's perfect copying met Frieza's evolved techniques in exchanges that carved new canyons into the landscape. But it was Krillin who surprised them both by adapting faster than either could counter. His spiraling Crusher Storm technique manifested as dozens of energy constructs that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each one carried the cutting power of his Destructo Disc combined with the homing ability of his Guardian Spheres, creating an attack that could pursue targets through space and time. "Interesting," Cell gasped as his form began to destabilize. "It seems we have more in common than I realized, Hybrid. That attack would have unmade us both." But the wave never reached its target. Cell, recognizing the threat that such a technique posed to his own composite nature, interposed himself between Frieza and Krillin. The resulting explosion threw all three fighters across the tournament grounds, while the wave's purging energy tore through Cell's perfect cellular structure. Frieza's retaliation came in the form of a technique he had developed specifically for this moment. "Hybrid Purge Wave," he announced with vicious satisfaction. The energy that erupted from his fingertips carried properties designed to separate and destroy mixed genetic structures. It was genocide weaponized into a single attack. Krillin's response revealed the depth of character that his transformation had actually enhanced rather than diminished. Not just us. If he's developed a technique that can unravel hybrid genetics, then Gohan, Trunks, and countless other beings throughout the galaxy are at risk. The moment of mutual vulnerability created an opening that neither fighter had anticipated. For the first time since his creation, Cell found himself in a position where cooperation was not just advantageous but necessary for survival. The impossible alliance that formed in that instant would reshape everything that followed. "Temporary truce," Cell proposed, his perfect features showing genuine concern. "Frieza's purification obsession threatens any being with mixed heritage. That includes both of us." The alliance that emerged was built on pragmatism rather than trust, but it proved devastatingly effective. Cell's perfect technique copying combined with Krillin's innovative energy manipulation created combination attacks that neither could have achieved alone. Their perfect harmony canon merged bio-android adaptation with hybrid balance to produce energy that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. Frieza found himself facing not just two opponents, but two philosophies that complemented each other in ways his pure supremacist ideology couldn't counter. Cell's perfection through absorption met Krillin's growth through choice and techniques that transcended the limitations of either approach alone. "This is exactly what I sought to prevent," Frieza snarled as he was forced to retreat from their combined assault. "Hybrid contamination spreading its influence to artificial life forms. The universe will thank me for ending this aberration." The energy that gathered around Frieza's form began to warp reality itself. Space twisted as the attack built toward critical mass, while time seemed to slow in recognition of the magnitude of destruction being prepared. This wasn't just an attack on Krillin and Cell, but on the very concept of genetic diversity itself. He's targeting the fundamental structures that allow different species to coexist. Cell realized with growing horror, if that technique succeeds, it will unravel not just us, but every hybrid being that has ever existed. His counterattack came in the form of his ultimate technique, one that had taken years of training to perfect. Final Purification was designed to not just destroy his targets, but to erase every trace of their genetic legacy from existence. It was extinction on a conceptual level. "If you want to erase the concept of hybrid strength," he declared, his voice carrying across dimensions, "then you'll have to go through the ultimate expression of what hybrid strength can become. The implications were staggering. Gohan's Saiyan human heritage would be retroactively erased. Trunks would cease to exist. Every being in the universe whose strength came from the combination of different genetic lineages would simply stop being, as if they had never been born. Krillin's response was to gather every fragment of power he had ever possessed, every technique he had ever learned, every moment of growth he had ever experienced. His aura expanded beyond the physical realm as he prepared to sacrifice not just his life but his very existence to prevent Frieza's vision of genetic purity from becoming reality. If you want to erase the concept of hybrid strength, he declared, his voice carrying across dimensions, then you'll have to go through the ultimate expression of what hybrid strength can become. Cell, recognizing the magnitude of Krillin's intended sacrifice, made a choice that surprised even himself. Instead of preserving his own perfect existence, he began channeling his absorbed power into supporting Krillin's desperate gambit. Perfect cooperation, Cell announced with something resembling genuine emotion. Perhaps this is what true perfection actually means. As Frieza's final purification reached critical mass and Krillin prepared to counter with everything he had ever been or could ever become, the tournament grounds became the stage for a battle that would determine not just Earth's fate but the future of genetic diversity throughout the entire universe. The collision of these ultimate techniques would either preserve the right of different species to grow stronger together or establish forever that purity through separation was the only acceptable path to power. In that moment of ultimate crisis, as reality itself prepared to choose between diversity and uniformity, the gentle monk who had discovered his warrior heritage stood ready to prove that the strength found in unity could overcome even the most perfect expressions of hatred. The collision of final purification and perfect cooperation tore through the fabric of reality itself. Frieza's technique, designed to erase hybrid genetics from existence, met the combined power of Krillin and Cell in an explosion that rewrote the laws of physics within a 50-mile radius. Space folded in on itself while time moved in stuttering waves that aged some objects to dust while leaving others frozen in temporal amber. When the dimensional distortions finally settled, three figures stood in the center of a crater that had been carved down to the planet's mantle. Frieza's opalescent form showed cracks where his perfect evolution had been damaged by energies it wasn't designed to contain. Cell's bio-android structure flickered between stability and dissolution as his cellular matrix struggled to maintain cohesion. But it was Krillin who had paid the highest price for their survival. His Super Saiyan monk transformation had burned out completely, leaving him looking more human than he had since his awakening on Namek. The silver energy that had marked his hybrid nature no longer flowed through his aura, and his power level readings showed a dramatic drop from his previous peaks, but his eyes blazed with determination that transcended any physical limitation. Is this the best that hybrid contamination can offer? Frieza sneered, though his voice carried less confidence than before. A burned-out mongrel and a destabilizing artificial construct? Perhaps my purification is unnecessary. You seem to be destroying yourselves quite efficiently. Cell's form solidified as his adaptive systems compensated for the damage. You underestimate what we've accomplished, Emperor. That technique of yours was designed to unravel mixed genetics, but it's taught us something valuable about the nature of our own power. The bio-android was correct. The exposure to Frieza's purification energy had stripped away the surface layers of their abilities, revealing the fundamental structures that lay beneath. Krillin's hybrid nature wasn't gone, it had been compressed into something more stable, more controllable, more precisely focused. Perfect harmony isn't about balancing different natures, Krillin realized as new understanding flooded through him. It's about synthesizing them into something entirely new, something that doesn't depend on the original components for its existence. His aura reignited, but the energy that surrounded him now was unlike anything previously seen. Neither Golden Saiyan power nor silver hybrid balance, but a deep blue radiance that seemed to contain infinite depth. This was synthesis form, a transformation that represented the complete integration of all aspects of his nature into a unified whole. Frieza's reaction was immediate and violent. His own aura exploded outward in waves of destructive force as he recognized the threat that this new evolution represented. Impossible! My purification should have separated your genetic components permanently. You cannot simply evolve past the fundamental laws of biology. That's where you're wrong, Cell interjected, his own form beginning to shift and adapt. Biology is just the starting point. True evolution comes from transcending the limitations of any single genetic template. The bio-android's perfect form began to dissolve and reconstitute itself, but instead of maintaining his previous appearance, he allowed his cellular structure to flow into something more appropriate for the battle ahead. His new configuration drew inspiration from both his absorbed genetics and the synthesis techniques he had observed from Krillin. Perfect synthesis, Cell announced as his transformation completed. Not perfection through absorption, but perfection through voluntary integration of complementary strengths. Frieza found himself facing two opponents who had transcended the very categories he sought to eliminate. Their power no longer came from the combination of different genetic heritages, but from the creation of entirely new forms of existence that operated beyond conventional biological limitations. The battle that erupted redefined the concept of combat on a universal scale. Frieza's techniques, refined through years of training for this specific confrontation, met abilities that shouldn't have been possible according to any known laws of physics or genetics. Krillin's synthesis form allowed him to manipulate energy in ways that seemed to violate conservation laws. His attacks drew power not from his own reserves, but from the fundamental forces that held reality together. Each technique he used became stronger through repetition rather than weaker, as if he was teaching the universe itself new ways to express destructive force. Cell's perfect synthesis granted him capabilities that exceeded simple copying. He could now anticipate and counter techniques before they were fully formed, reading the intentions behind attacks through quantum resonance with their energy signatures. His counters didn't just deflect incoming damage, they transformed hostile energy into supportive force that enhanced his own abilities. Dimensional Crusher Array, Krillin announced as space around Frieza began to fold and compress. Dozens of his evolved Destructo Discs materialized not in normal space, but in the quantum foam that existed between dimensions. They struck their target from angles that didn't exist in conventional geometry. Frieza's response was to abandon all pretense of restraint. His final evolution activated, transforming him into something that existed partially outside normal reality. His attacks now carried the force of cosmic phenomena, each energy blast equivalent to the birth or death of stars. Galactic Extinction Wave, he declared, channeling power that drew directly from the gravitational forces of nearby solar systems. The technique was designed to eliminate not just his immediate opponents, but everything within several light years of the battle. Cell intercepted the attack with a technique that demonstrated the true potential of perfect synthesis. Reality Adaptation Protocol, he announced as his body became a living anchor point for dimensional stability. The extinction wave struck him and simply ceased to exist. Its destructive potential absorbed and converted into constructive energy that strengthened the fabric of local space-time. The exchange of ultimate techniques continued for what felt like hours but registered as mere minutes on external timepieces. Each attack escalated beyond the previous, pushing the boundaries of what three individuals could accomplish through will and power alone. Frieza's Universal Purification Cannon attempted to rewrite the quantum signatures of everything it touched, forcing matter to exist in states that eliminated the possibility of genetic diversity. Krillin countered with Infinite Synthesis Beam, an attack that strengthened hybrid structures by teaching them to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Cell's Perfect Evolution Burst created temporary pocket dimensions where the laws of biology could be rewritten in real time, allowing him to test thousands of potential adaptations within seconds before selecting the most effective configuration for each moment of combat. The environmental destruction caused by their battle began to affect the entire solar system. Earth's orbit shifted slightly as the gravitational distortions from their energy exchanges pulled the planet toward new trajectories. The moon developed new crater formations from techniques that missed their intended targets. Even the sun output flickered as cosmic scale forces interfered with nuclear fusion processes. This has to end, Krillin realized as he sensed the broader implications of their conflict. We're gonna destroy everything we're trying to protect. His next technique was designed not to defeat Frieza, but to contain the battle itself. Sanctuary Field Deployment created a pocket dimension around all three combatants, isolating their conflict from the rest of reality. Within this space, they could unleash their full power without risking universal destruction. Cell immediately understood and supported the technique with his own dimensional manipulation abilities. Collaborative reality engineering, he declared, his power merging with Krillin's to create a stable battlefield that could withstand forces equivalent to galactic core explosions. Frieza, realizing that his opponents had just eliminated his ability to threaten innocent lives as leverage, responded with furious desperation. If I cannot purify the universe through targeted elimination, then I will remake it entirely. His ultimate technique was nothing less than the attempted destruction and recreation of local reality, according to his own specifications. Genesis Override Protocol began unraveling the fundamental constants that allowed matter and energy to exist in their current forms. The technique succeeded partially before Krillin and Cell could counter it. Large portions of their pocket dimension began reverting to primordial chaos as the building blocks of existence dissolved back into quantum potential. They found themselves fighting not just Frieza, but the universe's own attempts to collapse back into the void that preceded creation. Now you understand, Frieza laughed as reality crumbled around them. If I cannot eliminate hybrid contamination through selective breeding programs, I will simply eliminate the conditions that allow life to exist in impure forms. Cell's analytical capabilities allowed him to recognize the true scope of the threat. He's attempting to reset universal constants to prevent the emergence of complex genetic structures. If he succeeds, only the simplest life forms will be able to exist. Krillin's response required him to dig deeper than he had ever gone before, accessing not just his own synthesized nature, but the fundamental principles that allowed different forms of existence to coexist. His final technique would either save everything they had fought to protect or destroy it more completely than Frieza ever could. Universal harmony resonance, he whispered, his voice carrying across dimensional boundaries. Not the imposition of one vision of perfection, but the celebration of infinite diversity within unified purpose. The energy that began to gather around his synthesis form drew power from every compatible source within their pocket dimension. Cell's perfect synthesis merged with his own, while even Frieza's chaotic unmaking provided raw material that could be redirected toward constructive ends. But as the technique built toward critical mass, Krillin felt his consciousness beginning to fragment under the strain. The effort of channeling universal scale forces through an individual will was pushing him beyond the boundaries of coherent existence. His final attack would succeed, but the cost would be everything he had ever been or could ever become. Cell, recognizing his ally's sacrifice, made his own unprecedented choice. Instead of preserving his perfect existence, he began feeding his own consciousness into Krillin's technique, providing the stability needed to channel such overwhelming forces without losing coherent purpose. True perfection, Cell said, was something resembling peace, not the preservation of self, but the willing sacrifice of individual existence for the benefit of all possible life. As universal harmony resonance reached critical mass and Frieza's Genesis override threatened to unmake everything they had ever known, the outcome of their ultimate confrontation hung in the balance. The collision of these cosmic scale techniques would either restore the conditions that allowed diverse life to flourish, or reduce everything to a sterile uniformity that could never again support the complexity of hybrid existence. In that moment of ultimate crisis, the gentle monk who had learned to synthesize warrior and protector prepared to discover whether the strength found in unity could overcome even the most perfect expressions of the desire to control existence itself. The universe held its breath as three philosophies of power prepared to determine the fundamental nature of reality for all time. The universal harmony resonance erupted with the force of 1 trillion supernovas compressed into a single point of pure intention. Krillin's consciousness, merged with Cell's perfect analytical capabilities, guided the cosmic energies with precision that transcended individual existence. But Frieza's Genesis override continued its relentless assault on the foundations of reality itself, creating a feedback loop that threatened to tear apart the very concept of structured existence. Thus, within their isolated pocket dimension, the laws of physics became suggestions rather than absolutes. Time flowed backward and forward simultaneously while space folded into configurations that hurt to perceive. Matter existed in quantum superposition states that allowed it to be simultaneously created and destroyed with each fluctuation of the cosmic scale battle. "You cannot stop the inevitable," Frieza screamed as his form began to transcend physical limitations entirely. "Order through diversity is chaos. Only through absolute purity can existence achieve true stability." His Genesis override reached its final phase, attempting to rewrite the fundamental constants that governed how energy and matter could interact. The strong nuclear force began to weaken while electromagnetic interactions grew chaotic. If the process continued, atoms themselves would become impossible, reducing everything to a soup of elementary particles that could never again form complex structures. Krillin felt his individual consciousness fragmenting under the strain of channeling forces meant to be wielded by universal entities rather than mortal beings. But within that dissolution, he discovered something unexpected. Instead of losing himself, he was expanding to encompass perspectives that no single mind could normally contain. Through Cell's absorbed genetics, he experienced life from the viewpoint of every species the bio-android had encountered. Through his own hybrid nature, he felt the tension and harmony between different evolutionary paths. Most importantly, through his human training, he maintained the moral framework necessary to guide such overwhelming power toward constructive rather than destructive ends. "I understand now," his voice echoed across dimensions as his synthesis form evolved beyond individual existence. "The strength we're fighting for isn't just the right to be different." His technique began to incorporate Frieza's own Genesis override, not to oppose it, but to redirect its reality-shaping power toward constructive ends. Instead of unmaking the conditions that allowed complex life to exist, the merged energies began rewriting universal laws to be more supportive of diversity rather than less. Cell's perfect synthesis provided the computational power necessary to manage such complex alterations to fundamental physics. Remarkable, his consciousness merged with Krillin's as individual identity became irrelevant compared to the magnitude of their shared purpose. "We're not just preserving the current universe, we're improving it." The changes they implemented were subtle but profound. The strong nuclear force gained slight variations that allowed for more diverse atomic structures. Electromagnetic interactions developed quantum resonances that made hybrid genetic combinations more stable rather than less. Even gravity itself acquired properties that encouraged the formation of complex systems rather than simply drawing matter into simple concentrations. Frieza's reaction to having his reality-shaping technique co-opted was explosive fury that transcended rational thought. "Impossible! You cannot improve upon perfection. Universal order requires the elimination of variables, not their multiplication." His final gambit was to abandon all attempts at controlling the outcome and simply maximize the destructive potential of his remaining power. If he could not create a universe that conformed to his vision of purity, then he would ensure that no universe existed for impurity to contaminate. Absolute null genesis, he declared, channeling every fragment of his existence into a technique designed to create a permanent void where nothing could ever exist again. The attack was cosmic-scale suicide, intended to drag everything within several galactic clusters into non-existence along with him. The void that began to expand from Frieza's position was more than simple vacuum. It was the active negation of the possibility of existence itself. Matter that touched its edge didn't just disintegrate, it ceased to have ever been possible. Energy that entered the expanding sphere lost the quantum properties that allowed it to interact with anything else. Krillin and Cell, their consciousness now so merged that individual pronouns had become meaningless, faced a choice that would define the future of everything they had ever fought to protect. They could preserve themselves and allow Frieza's final tantrum to consume countless star systems, or they could sacrifice their merged existence to contain a threat that operated beyond conventional concepts of destruction. There's only one way to stop absolute negation, their unified consciousness realized with crystal clarity. We have to create something so fundamentally positive that it can survive even the complete absence of existence. Their response required them to go beyond every limit they had previously accepted, not just the transcendence of individual nature, but the willing dissolution of individual existence in service of a principle that exceeded personal survival. They began converting their combined consciousness into pure creative force, the opposite of Frieza's destructive void. Infinite affirmation protocol, they declared, their voice speaking from every point in space simultaneously. Not just the preservation of what exists, but the establishment of existence as a principle that transcends any attempt at negation. The technique that emerged was unprecedented in universal history. Instead of opposing Frieza's void with equivalent destructive force, they created an expanding wave of pure creative potential that strengthened everything it touched. Dying stars reignited with new fuel. Barren planets developed the chemical conditions necessary for life. Even empty space itself gained the quantum fluctuations needed to eventually birth new matter. The collision between absolute null genesis and infinite affirmation protocol created a paradox that reality itself struggled to resolve. The irresistible force of total negation met the immovable object of absolute creation in a conflict that operated outside normal causality. For a moment that lasted eternity and an eternity that passed in an instant, the outcome hung in perfect balance. Every particle in their pocket dimension existed in superposition between existence and non-existence, while the universe's fundamental programming decided which principle would prove stronger. The resolution came not through victory of one technique over another, but through synthesis that neither combatant had anticipated. Frieza's absolute negation merged with their infinite affirmation to create something entirely new, the principle of voluntary existence. Reality gained the property of choice, allowing every component of the universe to actively participate in its own continued existence, rather than simply being subject to external forces. Frieza's consciousness, faced with a universe that could choose to reject his influence rather than being compelled to accept it, finally encountered a form of defeat that his perfectionist psychology could not rationalize or overcome. His technique collapsed not because it lacked power, but because existence itself had chosen to continue despite his objections. Inconceivable, his voice faded as the void consuming his essence was gradually filled with the voluntary affirmation of countless particles choosing to exist. How can imperfection choose to persist when perfection demands its elimination? The answer came not from words, but from demonstration. Every atom in the surrounding space began to resonate with conscious choice to maintain its current configuration. Every energy wave chose to continue propagating rather than dissipating into entropy. Even the vacuum fluctuations that gave birth to virtual particles gained the ability to choose persistence over annihilation. Krillin and Cell's merged consciousness, having given everything to establish this new principle, began to fade as individual entities. But rather than dissolution into nothingness, they found themselves becoming part of the choice mechanism they had created. Their sacrifice had not ended their existence, but transformed it into something that could guide and support the decisions of every component of reality. Perhaps this is what victory actually means. Their fading awareness whispered across dimensional boundaries. Not the defeat of opposition, but the creation of conditions where opposition becomes cooperation in service of something greater than any individual will. As Frieza's form finally succumbed to the creative forces he had sought to negate, as their pocket dimension prepared to rejoin normal spacetime, as the universe settled into its new configuration where existence was a collaborative choice rather than an imposed condition, the cost of their unprecedented victory became clear. The gentle monk who had discovered his warrior heritage no longer existed as an individual entity. The bio-android who had achieved perfection through synthesis had transcended the need for physical form, but their influence had become woven into the fundamental structure of reality itself, ensuring that the principles they had fought for would guide existence for all time. Earth's defenders, monitoring the dimensional distortions from outside the pocket universe, prepared to witness either the return of their transformed ally or the complete absence of any survivor from the cosmic scale battle that had raged beyond their ability to comprehend. The outcome would determine not just whether Krillin had survived his ultimate sacrifice, but whether the universe itself had chosen to affirm the strength that could be found in unity over the weakness that came from forced uniformity. As the pocket dimension prepared to collapse and reveal the results of the last stand that had decided the fate of existence itself, one question remained unanswered. Could individual consciousness survive the transition to universal principle, or had the price of ultimate victory been the loss of everything that made victory meaningful in personal terms? The pocket dimension collapsed with a sound like reality exhaling after holding its breath for eternity. As the distorted space folded back into normal existence, the assembled Z-Fighters watched the tournament grounds reshape themselves into something that defied immediate comprehension. Where once there had been simple earth and stone, crystalline formations now pulsed with gentle energy that seemed to strengthen everything in their vicinity. At the center of the transformed landscape stood a figure that was unmistakably Krillin, yet fundamentally different from the warrior who had entered the dimensional battle. His physical form appeared more solid, more present than before, as if he existed with greater certainty than the rest of reality. The blue aura of his synthesis form had stabilized into something that seemed less like an energy field and more like a natural property of his existence. Krillin! Goku's voice carried across the crystalline field as he rushed toward his oldest friend, but he stopped short when he met eyes that held depths that seemed to contain universes. This was still the gentle monk he had trained with as a child, but something fundamental had changed in the nature of his existence. "I'm still me," Krillin said softly, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the crystal formations around them. "But I'm also something more now. The universe and I have reached an understanding." Cell was nowhere to be seen, though faint traces of his energy signature could be detected woven throughout the transformed environment. His perfect synthesis had apparently transcended the need for individual form, becoming part of the improved fundamental structure of local reality itself. Frieza's fate was more definitive. Where the Emperor of the Universe had made his final stand, only a small crater remained, but it was filled with the same life-affirming crystals that had emerged throughout the area. Even his attempt at absolute destruction had been transformed into something constructive, a final irony that would have infuriated him had consciousness remained to appreciate it. "The readings are incredible," Bulma announced as she analyzed the energy signatures flowing through the transformed tournament grounds. "It's like the basic laws of physics have been upgraded. Energy flows more efficiently, matter maintains greater stability, and the quantum foam shows properties that should be impossible." Dr. Brief's instruments detected even more remarkable changes. Genetic expression rates have increased across all life forms in the vicinity. Plants are growing faster, animals are displaying enhanced cognitive function, and even the soil itself seems to have gained regenerative properties. The implications of these changes became apparent as the hours passed. The crystal formations weren't just decorative, they were actively improving everything they touched. Wounded fighters found their injuries healing at accelerated rates. Exhausted warriors discovered their energy reserves replenishing faster than normal recovery should allow. "This is what you accomplished in there, isn't it?" Android 18 asked as she approached Krillin with a mixture of awe and concern. "You didn't just defeat Frieza, you changed the fundamental nature of how existence works." Krillin nodded, his expression carrying the weight of cosmic responsibility, tempered by the same gentle compassion that had always defined him. "Cell and I realized that opposing destruction with more destruction would never create lasting peace, so we chose to make existence itself more robust, more supportive of life and growth." The changes weren't limited to the immediate area. Satellite readings showed similar crystalline formations appearing at stress points throughout Earth's crust, each one stabilizing geological activity while improving local environmental conditions. The planet itself was being upgraded to better support the diverse life forms that called it home. Vegeta's reaction was characteristically complex, mixing admiration with philosophical confusion. "You've achieved something beyond Super Saiyan evolution," he admitted grudgingly, "but I cannot comprehend the mindset that chooses to strengthen the universe rather than simply dominating it." "That's the difference between Saiyan instincts and human wisdom," Krillin replied with a smile that carried echoes of his pre-transformation personality. "Saiyans seek to prove their strength through conquest. Humans seek to prove their strength through protection. My hybrid nature allowed me to synthesize both approaches into something entirely new." The New World Order that emerged from their cosmic battle operated on principles that would have been impossible under the previous universal constants. Competition still existed, but it was balanced by cooperation in ways that strengthened all participants. Power could still be accumulated, but it automatically generated supportive effects for surrounding life rather than simply enabling domination. Training sessions among the Z fighters demonstrated these changes dramatically. When Goku and Gohan sparred using their full power, the crystalline formations around them absorbed the excess energy and converted it into environmental improvements. Their practice fights were literally making the world a better place rather than just causing destruction. "It's like the universe learned how to turn combat into a constructive force," Piccolo observed as his own training session resulted in accelerated plant growth throughout the surrounding forest. "Violence still exists, but it serves creation rather than destruction." The most profound changes appeared in the way power itself functioned. Individual strength still mattered, but it was now impossible to use that strength in ways that didn't also benefit the broader community. Tyrants would find their oppressive efforts mysteriously failing as the universe itself subtly undermined actions that harmed overall well-being. Remarkable, Krillin mused as he tested his own abilities in this transformed reality. My techniques are actually stronger than before, but only when used to protect others. Aggressive applications seem to drain energy rather than channeling it effectively. The implications for galactic politics were staggering. Across the universe, despotic regimes found their oppressive systems becoming mysteriously inefficient. Peaceful civilizations discovered that their defensive capabilities had increased dramatically. The balance of power was shifting toward those who sought to nurture rather than those who sought to dominate. But the changes came with their own challenges. Earth's enhanced environment began attracting attention from species that had never previously considered the small planet worth visiting. Some came seeking to understand the new universal principles, while others hoped to exploit or control them. We're receiving communication requests from over 40 different galactic civilizations, Bulma reported during an emergency briefing at Capsule Corp. Everyone wants to know how we triggered such widespread changes to fundamental physics. Krillin's response revealed the true scope of what they had accomplished. We didn't just change physics on Earth. The infinite affirmation protocol propagated throughout connected space-time. Every star system, every galaxy that shares quantum entanglement with our local area has been affected to some degree. The arrival of the first alien delegation confirmed the universal scope of their transformation. The Galactic Patrol, which had previously dismissed Earth as an insignificant backwater, now sought to establish a permanent research station to study the synthesis phenomenon that had originated from their world. Your species has achieved something that our greatest scientists considered theoretically impossible, the patrol leader explained during their first formal meeting. You've managed to implement voluntary existence as a universal principle. Reality itself now chooses cooperation over conflict as its default state. But not every response was positive. A coalition of warlike species, led by survivors from Frieza's empire, began organizing to reverse what they saw as the contamination of natural selection with artificial harmony. They viewed the new universal principles as weakness that needed to be purged before it spread further. They don't understand, Krillin observed as intelligence reports detailed the forming opposition. They think we've made the universe weaker by making it more cooperative. They can't comprehend that true strength comes from unity rather than domination. The first test of the New World Order came when an advanced scout force from the opposition coalition attempted to establish a beachhead on Earth's moon. Their weapons, designed to cause maximum destruction and suffering, simply refused to function properly in the enhanced space around Earth. Impossible, the invasion commander reported back to his fleet. Our destructive capabilities have been reduced by 90% in this system. Some unknown force is converting our weapons output into harmless energy that actually improves local conditions. The failed assault demonstrated that the universe's new principles weren't just philosophical changes, but practical alterations to how power itself could be wielded. Aggressive intent was no longer a viable path to achieving dominance, while protective intent received cosmic-level support that exceeded anything previously possible. As news of the failed invasion spread throughout the galaxy, civilizations began to reconsider their fundamental approaches to achieving security and prosperity. The universe had chosen cooperation, and those who could adapt to this new reality would thrive, while those who insisted on the old ways of domination would find themselves increasingly isolated and ineffective. The gentle monk's transformation had done more than save Earth from immediate threats. It had initiated a universal evolution toward principles that would reshape how consciousness itself related to existence for all time. In the months that followed the cosmic transformation, the crystalline gardens that had replaced the tournament grounds became a place of pilgrimage for philosophers and warriors alike. Krillin often found himself sitting among the energy formations, contemplating the magnitude of what had been accomplished and what it meant for the future of conscious existence throughout the universe. Do you ever regret it? Goku asked during one of their quiet conversations, his voice carrying the weight of someone trying to understand choices that operated beyond his natural simplicity. Giving up the individual power you had gained to change how power itself works for everyone? Krillin considered the question carefully, his enhanced perception allowing him to sense the genuine concern behind his oldest friend's words. I didn't give up power, Goku. I transformed it into something that serves a larger purpose. Individual strength that can only be used to dominate others isn't really strength at all. It's just sophisticated weakness disguised as capability. The transformation had indeed changed the fundamental nature of how strength manifested throughout their reality. Where once power had been primarily about the ability to impose one's will upon others, it now required harmony with universal principles that favored cooperation and mutual growth. Warriors could still become incredibly strong, but that strength automatically generated benefits for their communities rather than simply enabling personal dominance. Vegeta's struggles with this new paradigm had been particularly illuminating. The Prince of all Saiyans found himself caught between his ingrained instincts for hierarchical dominance and the undeniable effectiveness of the cooperative approaches that the universe now favored. It's maddening, he confessed during one of their training sessions. Every technique I attempt becomes more powerful when I focus on protecting others rather than proving my superiority. My Saiyan pride rebels against such concepts, yet the results speak for themselves. That's exactly the point, Krillin replied, his voice carrying the patient tone of someone who had wrestled with similar contradictions. The universe isn't asking you to abandon your nature. It's asking you to evolve that nature toward its highest expression. True Saiyan pride should be about becoming strong enough to protect everyone, not just dominating the weak. Android 18's perspective on the changes had been uniquely valuable, given her artificial nature and emotional distance from the biological drives that influenced organic beings. You've made the universe more logical, she observed with characteristic directness. Cooperation produces better outcomes than conflict in almost every measurable way. It was irrational that reality previously rewarded destructive behavior over constructive action. Her analysis highlighted one of the most profound aspects of the transformation. The new universal principles weren't imposing alien values upon existing consciousness. They were simply making the logical consequences of different approaches to power more immediately apparent. Destructive actions now generated resistance from reality itself, while constructive actions received cosmic-level support. The philosophical implications extended far beyond combat and conflict resolution. Scientists across the galaxy discovered that research focused on benefiting multiple species produced breakthrough insights faster than studies aimed at gaining competitive advantages. Artists found that works celebrating diversity and unity resonated across species barriers in ways that narrowly focused cultural expressions could not achieve. You've proven something that philosophers have debated for millennia, Master Roshi observed during one of his visits to the crystalline gardens. The question of whether consciousness is fundamentally competitive or cooperative has been resolved in favor of cooperation, not through argument or evidence, but through direct alteration of how reality operates. The elderly martial arts master had been profoundly affected by watching his former student transcend every limitation he had once faced. I taught you discipline and technique, but you discovered wisdom that went far beyond anything I could have imagined. The greatest martial art isn't about perfecting combat techniques, it's about perfecting the intentions behind their use. Piccolo's Namekian perspective provided additional depth to their philosophical discussions. On my homeworld, we understood that individual strength meant nothing if the community could not survive. But your transformation has made that principle universal rather than just cultural. Every being now experiences the truth that personal power is meaningless without collective well-being. The changes had indeed created a reality where individual achievement was inherently connected to community success. Warriors could still pursue personal growth and power, but the most effective path to such growth was through service to larger purposes rather than purely selfish advancement. The strangest part, Krillin reflected, is how natural it feels now. Fighting for personal glory or dominance requires constant effort against universal resistance, while fighting to protect others feels like swimming with a cosmic current that carries you toward greater strength. Cell's consciousness, now distributed throughout the enhanced reality structure, occasionally manifested as subtle guidance that helped other beings understand the new principles. His perfect analytical capabilities had become a universal resource for optimizing the balance between individual growth and collective benefit. Frieza's final defeat had represented more than the elimination of a particular tyrant. It had demonstrated that the universe itself could evolve beyond tolerating systems based on oppression and fear. Reality now actively resisted attempts to concentrate power in ways that harmed overall well-being, making traditional tyranny not just morally wrong but practically impossible. What you've accomplished, Gohan said during one of their training sessions, is the ultimate expression of what my father always talked about. Strength that protects rather than destroys, power that serves rather than dominates. You've made those ideals into physical laws rather than just moral principles. The young half-Saiyan had adapted quickly to the new reality, finding that his natural inclination toward using power responsibly was now supported by cosmic forces that made such approaches dramatically more effective than aggressive alternatives. As the crystalline formations around them pulsed with gentle energy that nurtured all life in their vicinity, Krillin contemplated the full scope of what had been achieved. The gentle monk who had discovered his warrior heritage had ultimately transcended both identities to become something entirely new, a bridge between individual consciousness and universal well-being that proved the strength found in unity could indeed reshape the fundamental nature of existence itself. The greatest victory was not the defeat of any particular enemy, but the establishment of principles that would guide consciousness toward its highest possible expression for all time. The ancient scroll that Master Roshi had kept hidden for over 3 centuries revealed its secrets only after the universal transformation made such revelations possible. As Krillin examined the weathered parchment in the Turtle Hermit's private vault, symbols that had remained indecipherable for generations suddenly blazed with meaning that transcended language barriers. The Celestial Survey, Roshi explained with a mixture of pride and apprehension. My master's master discovered this during his travels beyond Earth's atmosphere. We always suspected it contained information about other worlds, but the writing system defied every attempt at translation. Now enhanced by his synthesis with universal principles, Krillin could perceive the true nature of the document. It wasn't written in any conventional language, but in quantum resonance patterns that conveyed meaning directly to consciousness, capable of processing multi-dimensional information. The scroll detailed a galactic-scale project that had been operating for over 50,000 years. Multiple advanced civilizations had been conducting what they called hybrid seeding, deliberately introducing genetic material from various species to promising worlds throughout the galaxy. Earth had been one of their primary experimental sites. Humans aren't naturally occurring, Krillin realized as the full scope of the revelation became clear. Your species is the result of careful genetic engineering designed to create beings capable of adapting and synthesizing traits from any other form of life they encounter. The implications were staggering. Yamcha's unusual resilience, Tien's ability to manifest techniques that seemed beyond human capability, even Master Roshi's extraordinary longevity, all pointed to hidden genetic enhancements that had been dormant for generations. Earth's humans were actually a hybrid species designed to serve as universal adapters and bridges between different forms of consciousness. That explains why Earth produces such unusual fighters, Vegeta mused as he studied the translated sections. You weren't just training harder than other species, you were genetically programmed to exceed your apparent limitations when faced with sufficient challenges. But the scroll contained even more disturbing information. The hybrid seeding project had been abandoned abruptly when its creators detected something they termed synthesis cascade potential. Their calculations suggested that if the experimental populations ever achieved true unity between their various genetic components, the resulting consciousness could fundamentally alter universal principles in unpredictable ways. They were afraid of exactly what you accomplished, Android 18 observed with characteristic directness. Your transformation wasn't an accident or a unique event, it was the intended outcome of their experiment, but one they decided was too dangerous to allow. The scroll's final sections detailed countermeasures that had been implemented to prevent the synthesis cascade. Aggressive species had been deliberately introduced to keep experimental populations in states of constant conflict. Tyrants like Frieza had been covertly supported to ensure that hybrid consciousness never achieved the unity necessary for universal transformation. The Saiyans, Krillin breathed as understanding dawned. They weren't naturally aggressive either. They were artificially enhanced and manipulated to serve as living weapons designed to prevent other species from achieving synthesis. The revelation recontextualized everything they thought they understood about galactic history. The destruction of planet Vegeta, the rise of the Frieza Force, even the emergence of threats like Cell had all been part of elaborate systems designed to prevent the very transformation that Krillin had ultimately achieved. But the scroll's most shocking revelation came in its final passages. The hybrid seeding project hadn't been abandoned completely. Other experimental worlds still existed throughout the galaxy, each one populated by beings with similar potential for synthesis and transformation. Earth's success had inadvertently activated dormant protocols in these populations, triggering awakening processes across dozens of star systems. We're not alone, Krillin realized with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. There are others out there who are just beginning to discover their true nature. The transformation we achieved here is spreading, but they'll face the same opposition we encountered. Cell's distributed consciousness, sensing the importance of this revelation, manifested briefly as crystalline formations that pulsed with complex information patterns. His analytical capabilities had detected quantum entanglement signatures, connecting Earth to 47 other worlds where similar awakening processes were beginning. The countdown has begun, his synthesized voice whispered through harmonic resonances in the crystal structures. What we accomplished was not the end of our story, but the beginning of a universal awakening that will either transform consciousness throughout the galaxy, or trigger responses from forces that make Frieza seem like a minor inconvenience. The scroll's final image showed a star map with Earth at its center, connected by quantum threads to distant worlds where other hybrid populations were beginning to discover their true potential. But surrounding this network of awakening consciousness were symbols representing entities that the scroll's creators had feared enough to abandon their entire project. The synthesis suppressors, Krillin translated the final section with growing concern. Beings whose sole purpose is to prevent the emergence of unified consciousness capable of altering universal principles. They've been dormant for millennia, but our transformation has awakened them. As the implications of the scroll's revelations settled over the assembled defenders, new energy signatures began appearing on their enhanced detection systems, distant but approaching, carrying power levels that dwarfed anything they had previously encountered. These weren't random threats drawn by Earth's increased prominence, but specific responses to the synthesis cascade that had been triggered by Krillin's transformation. The gentle monk's journey from hidden heritage to universal transformation had opened a door that could never be closed. Across the galaxy, hybrid populations were awakening to their true potential, while ancient guardians of the old order prepared to prevent the spread of consciousness that could rewrite the fundamental nature of existence itself. The real battle for the future of awareness in the universe was just beginning, and Earth stood at the center of a conflict that would determine whether consciousness could evolve toward unity or would be forced to remain forever divided against itself. The final revelation blazed in quantum fire across the scroll's surface. When synthesis achieves universal resonance, consciousness itself will choose its ultimate form. The awakening cannot be stopped, but its outcome remains unwritten.